Coming up next on the Jeff Crilley Show, you're going to meet somebody who is in corporate training, and she's going to tell us all about how things in your childhood can emerge in corporate America. Her incredible story just ahead.
Many are predicting that the worst is yet to come, which is unfortunate, said one person here. Until now, they've enjoyed the reputation of being the nation's icebox.
Watched a burglar in his home this morning by webcam.
As a journalist of over 25 years, stories are what make my world turn.
Reporting live from the Dallas newsroom tonight, Jeff Crilley, Fox 4 News.
But in 2008, I took the jump from my familiar life and started a PR firm from my home.
We're talking about anyone with a camcorder like the one I'm using becomes a television network.
We started slowly growing the company, and we now have over 100 clients, and we've branched into the world of live digital broadcasting. I now own 8 different TV studios and have a huge team, and the stories that I now get to share are sometimes the most important of my life. Life has a funny way of coming around full circle. This is the Jeff Crilley Show.
So I grew up in this all-loving household. Dad's a minister, Mom was a preacher's wife, and so I never heard yelling. I mean, there was no loud noises. And I remember when I first started dating my wife, Victoria, I said, look, here's how my brain works. I cannot hear loud sounds. I cannot. So whatever you need to say to me, please say it in gentle tones. And so that gives you a lot on how my brain works. But somebody who does this for a living and helps leaders become more effective by dealing with sometimes childhood trauma. My next guest is Jacqueline Campbell. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, Jeff, for having me. I really appreciate being here.
Absolutely. Well, I think that story probably resonates with a lot of people. They avoid conflict. I don't want to face adversity, and so everything has to be tranquil. But that's probably an issue that you could work on with somebody.
It is, actually. There's a lot of servant leaders who they end up giving a lot of themselves because they kind of walk on eggshells, try to keep people a little bit more comfortable when conflict is actually a good thing, just not violent and mean, chaotic conflict, but conflict resolution, which is open, honest communication, is really good for them. But they end up taking more burden, walking on the eggshells, trying to keep things safe and quiet. Yes. Instead of just emotionally safe, which is congruent and authentic.
And I want people to know your heart. You've been fascinated with how the brain works since you were a little girl.
Right.
Tell us your journey.
Right. I appreciate you asking. So I grew up in a relatively unstable home. There was some yelling and there was some other things. And I ended up writing a book, Surviving the Family, and that motivated me as a result of the experiences from my childhood. And so this is a book that is a guide for anyone who grows up with generational trauma in their family for childhood sexual abuse. Now, unfortunately, for a lot of families, they don't know how to stop that. You know, you have to go into therapy. Somebody has to stop the generational trauma from continuing, because if they don't, it will continue. Somebody has to get involved and then stop it. Usually, this is a highly sensitive person in the family. They're observant. I was the youngest child, so I observed a lot. And so I grew up from a very young age observing everything that's going on and how generational themes hurt people. And when I went into the military, it got worse. You know, I ended up realizing just how much trauma I had, and working with people in security. I was a Marine security guard. I did 6 years overseas. I worked with Secret Service and did personal security for the President of the United States and Secretary of Defense. Very cool interactions and very cultural. However, I didn't have the best coping skills. Yes. You know, I realized that I wasn't doing what was best for me. I wasn't taking care of myself, working in a high-stress environment. And so when I got out, going into criminal justice, I ended up having to get a forensic psychology degree. And that's when I realized I need therapy. I need to work on myself.
Wow.
I'm aggressive. I'm addicted to alcohol, and I really had to work on myself. But I had to see myself, because if you don't authentically see yourself just as you are, you can't change. So I realized I needed to go in therapy, work on my aggression, work on my addictions, and I ended up working with a lot of entrepreneurs and executives that they have the same stuff going on. It's a lot of personal pressure coming from their unresolved childhood issues. And so I work with them in order to help them get to their more authentic self.
Well, I can see why you're so successful. I mean, you've walked more than a mile in their shoes, and you can tell your own story of healing and recovery. I think that's awesome. I also urge you to follow her on all her social media platforms because she puts out these great tips. Here's one.
Today I was talking to a client, and I've been working with her for quite a while, and she has a lot of clarity, but that doesn't mean that our emotions don't get the best of us and that there's things in our past that still need resolving. So we were working together. There was a present situation that really upset her, and she has been working with me enough. She knows that there's some kind of feeder memory, that's what we call them, in her past that's leading to the over emotion in the present situation. I also should have another video on that on my preferred page, and that tells you how to find that float back. But because her brain has more clarity now, she already knows it's there. She already knows the process. But the thing about that is sometimes we don't even know the absence of emotion, which would be avoidance or denial. That is a suppression of what would be an over emotional response. And so for leaders, in order for us to have full clarity in the moment, in the present reality, with a clear head and a calm body, making clear decisions, we have to work on ourselves to understand there's going to be a feeder memory if there's these two things. And it could be either or. One, an over emotion in the present situation, meaning I'm upset about this situation right now, but I'm a little over emotional. So there's going to be a feeder memory. That feeder memory needs to calm down. You need to get resolution with it, whatever it may be, in order to get clear-minded on the present scenario. Or two, you have avoidance and denial. What this looks like is you might be irritated in the situation and you just want to get away from it. You want to shut it down. You don't want to address it. You don't want to talk about it. You just want it to be done. That's avoidance. It's impatience because you don't want to address the emotion that is behind the avoidance or the denial. Both of these scenarios happen all the time in the workplace, and us leaders, we have to have the accountability to address them. We have to admit them, but then we need to seek guidance. What this means is you can do a couple of different things. Work with a therapist, you can work with a coach, you can talk to another safe person who's they're a good listener, they're gonna let you use them as a sounding board. Or you can go journal about it. If you don't want to do any of those things, that's fine. Talk to yourself out loud about the situation and why it's bothering you so much, or why you're avoiding it so much in the car while you're driving. We don't really have a lot of distractions if we're sitting in traffic. So this is the time, or you can do it in the shower. A lot of people do that because you just can't escape your brain in those two places. So it's a really good time for it to talk to you. If you're open for it to identify where the problem is in your childhood or earlier in your life, it will. Then it will help you make more effective decisions as a leader in the present.
I think you're absolutely brilliant, and people can tell from that video you've got all this knowledge, but you also talk like a regular person, and that's so important for the people that you're helping. Let's talk about another common type of person that you help.
Right. So a lot of them are servant leaders, but another very common type, which I was also this type, but I did help a client, we can call him Bob, but very addicted to his job, very successful and very wealthy. He wasn't happy. A lot of divorces. His children just didn't talk to him anymore, addicted to alcohol, other addictions. But the main addiction was the fact that he was trying to get gratification and what felt like achievement, which was, it feels good to us. It increases our dopamine. So it's the reward hormone. So it makes us feel good. It's not love, but he loved his job, right? So he did it a lot. He did it so much that his wife left him and his children left him. And eventually he ended up sabotaging his own business. And he did that a few times before he came to me. Wow. We worked together for a few years. And it was very hard because you're taking away the one coping skill that works. His job made him feel good. But then he kept sabotaging it because he didn't actually love himself. So eventually he learned over time to become more of his authentic self. The addiction subsided. The self-sabotage subsided. He did get into a very lovely and healthy relationship with a woman who definitely, she really respected him. And he had no idea that what his other wife was trying to do, his former wife, was trying to just reach his heart. He was very closed off and he couldn't connect. And so now he's starting to bridge. This is, a few years later, he's worked on himself. But now he's starting to bridge the relationship between him and his children.
This is your unique gift, isn't it? Does it take you about 10 seconds to read somebody and say, I know what's going on?
Actually, it is a gift to be able to see somebody's heart. And it took me so long to realize that that's what that was, because I saw so many human dynamics that they're invisible. You know, we have to put labels on them to understand really what's going on. But when you see it and you don't dig into it, then you're denying that it's there. So that's what I help people do, is I help them reconnect with themselves.
And she's a very popular speaker. We've got some video of her speaking in front of an audience. What types of audiences do you like to speak to?
I love that question. I want to speak to any audience that's open to accountability, to growth, to human expansion, and our ability to really connect with our heart. The brain-heart coherence, it just leads you into very passionate places, and you would love your life once you get there. But it's the journey getting there. It's all healing, which it does hurt, but it's definitely worth it. And so anybody who's really open to that, it's a hard journey, but it's definitely good.
Okay, so in the final 2 minutes, I want you to look right into that camera on the left and talk to the CEO or C-suite person who says, man, I think I just found my leadership development trainer.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So what I would like to say to all the business owners out there, if you are a small business owner or you are a solopreneur, then you hold a lot of stress. And if you don't have a balanced life, it's not going to be worth it. You might make a lot of money and you might feel accomplished because you have a few businesses, and it might look good, but it's definitely not going to feel good. And so we want to get you into a place that you appreciate every aspect of your life. You wake up every single morning and you have that connection between your brain and your heart to get you exactly where you want to be in all these spaces while staying connected with yourself and the people you love. The other part of this is that I love doing trainings, because the more people I can speak to, the more people can connect to their hearts. So if you are a servant leader and you really want your culture in your organization to shift, then I would love to have a conversation.
Outstanding. Well, thank you so much for blessing us with your wisdom and your heart. And we're going to give you more information on how to get a hold of her. It's restoringmindswellness.com. The great Jacqueline Campbell. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You bet. That's it for now. We'll see you next time.